Very good. We now have 82 people online. So I think we are going to start our webinar today. To begin, we want to thank you for your participation, for your time. And in this webinar, we are talking about digitalization and monitoring of mobility, starting from experiences and learned lessons in some of the projects in Chile of sustainable mobility. To start, my name is Luis Felipe. I am the coordinator of the programs of the Sustainable Mobility Unit of the program of the UN of Environment. We are going to have speakers from the Energetic Sustainability Agency in Chile, the Directory of Metropolitan Transport in Chile, which are our partners in this project from the CMS, and also with our colleagues from UN. Next slide, please. Here, we're going to give the floor from the group that is providing the service of interpretation so that they provide some of the indications to be able to listen to this webinar in several languages. Hello, everyone. Hello, Luis Felipe. All the presentations of today will be in Spanish, but questions may be asked in English or Portuguese as well. If you require simultaneous interpreting, you can enter the lower area and choose Spanish. If that doesn't work, you can go to the three dots in the lower bar in the more option and listen in Spanish. If you want to switch your name as well during the meeting, you can go to the square where your name is, and you can choose the option of changing the name or renaming depending on how it appears for you. And you may be changing the name. Now, adding to the recommendations provided by Daniela of choosing a language, we also want to say that this session is being recorded and that it will be shared with the people that registered to participate. And in the end, we're going to open a space for questions and answers. So you are able to ask anything you want to ask to the group of speakers today. Let's continue. This is the agenda for today. It's a little ambitious in terms of the topics that we want to speak about. We want to start by welcoming and providing a little context in the framework of what projects are being developed for this webinar. And then we will have a presentation by Ariel Núñez from the CMS about data and evidence for the measurement of key indicators in mobility. And then we will join a presentation by Álvaro Maturana from the Energetic Sustainability Agency about learned lessons on the first monitoring operation of electrical cabs in Chile. And then we will open the space for Diego Cruz from the DTPM. So he presents learned lessons in the implementation of electronic and unified payment of mobility network. Then we will open the Q&A space. And after that session, Jimena Manchego from UN Habitat will tell us about the questionnaire of data of training in this project, and then we will go into the closing of this webinar. Next slide, please. Well, previous slide. Okay, thank you. In the framework of this webinar, it happens thanks to many projects that we've been coordinating together as a group. To start, I would like to thank the entire community of SOMESLAC, which is a community created by specialists, professionals, leaders in mobility in the region that is oriented to strengthen and widen the regional capacities of governments, of institutions, of organizations that are working in terms of mobility. And also, their goal is to connect people, to provide a space of exchange of knowledge, and also to create alliances that are strategic within sustainable mobility, with the goal of having inclusive mobility and with a gender focus. And also, this is part of one of the initiatives of the Global Gateway that is financed by the European Union and also by the German cooperative, where our colleagues from GIZ have an important role in the administration and coordination of this project. And also, this community is articulated with several other initiatives that we are working on, from the UN program for the environment, like Access, that we are going to talk about later on, and with the Global Mobility Program. So I'd like to thank the community of Practice SOMESLAC that has allowed us to create this space that is a fundamental space of the community where we have topic groups. And in this moment, these groups from the community are 5. We have a topic group of digitalization, which is the one that we are joining today. There's another one of urban transportation. There's another group of gender in active mobility, and another topic group in climate commitments. All of these groups' goal is to create a space of exchange, of work. So as I said before, to strengthen this network of professionals and strengthen their abilities. And today in particular, in the second session of the topic group of digitalization, where we want to show you all of these study cases of digitalization and monitoring of mobility through the experiences in Chile. Next slide, please. So the objectives of this session, we have show them as a possibility to get to know how, through activities of monitoring and digitalization, we are able to improve planning and evaluation of mobility systems. We also want to work on methodologies and practices that are based on data for the measurement of key indicators that are finance, environment, etc. And not long ago, I also mentioned this is a session, a space oriented to share learning experiences that are brought from projects that have been implemented here in Chile. We also want to look how, through these experiences, we are able to escalate or replicate them, these good practices. And finally, the final objective is to push the exchange of knowledge between interested actors, which right now we're around 100 people that are online. Next slide, please. This webinar is a very special one because our goal is to gather all the initiatives that we are working on. So we gathered the topic group of digitalization of SOMESLAC, and we partnered with this other project that we're working on, which is the Global Mobility Program of PENUMA, and also the program of digitalization of transport. So this particular project, which is also on the screen, is part of the Electrical Mobility Global Program, which in Latin America is being done also in a global level to support the transition towards electric mobility with different or through different activities like financing, technical support, training. And this project in this global program has activities on a global, regional, and national level. On a global level, there are 4 topic groups in different aspects of electric mobility. We also have a toolbox that you probably have heard of in other spaces groups. They have 4 platforms, regional support platforms to electric mobility. And they also have as a center the implementation of several policies and projects in the future. Particularly in Latin America, we are working on these countries that you can see signed in blue colors. And at this time, we have in the webinar representatives of these international projects. Next slide, please. And with the other initiative we have gathered with today is Access, which is a project to accelerate the access to urban electric mobility through digitalization, which is financed by the Ministry of Economical Matters and Climate Action, and with the International Climate Initiative. And this project in particular seeks to ease the implementation of strategies to reduce, change, and improve transport services through digitalization with the goal of reducing emissions. At this time, our first project, which is Axis, there are 6 countries working in this region: Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, and Brazil. And we are opening up this project to other regions. So we have created notes so we can explain these activities to other Caribbean countries and Paraguay. What's the goal of the project? Basically, to support the implementation of projects of digitalization and creating strategies and plans of digitalization of transport, to create national plans in digitalization, and to be able to carry through a national component this project to other countries, other cities, more people, and more institutions. Next slide, please. And as I was saying, those who are today in this webinar, we are the ones who create this group of electric mobility. And in this session, which is organized with the support of the regional platform of electric mobility, coordinated by the CMS, the program of the UN for the environment, is in the participating countries of these projects, partners of this group. We are creating policies centered in the implementation and acceleration of electric mobility in other countries. And this technical group of countries that create part of Central America, we are working on electric mobility topics. All of those who are participating in localizations, we are the contact network of SOMOSLAC
partnerships of the organizations
and the partners
of
of
SOMOSLAC, and also the
Access,
partners of the
where there
concert
are
access,
organizations
where we can see organizations
like the
like the
initiatives of urban
Electrical Institute,
electromobility. There's also the
the
CMS, the
Electromobility,
MIT,
the Urban Initiative,
the UN programs for
CMS, the
development, there's
MIT,
UN
the National
Habitat and
Program of the
others.
United Nations for
And all of these
Development,
groups have joined together
the
on this
UN.
webinar to be able to work
So
on the
we are
topic
all
of
been working
transport
together
digitalization, which are
in
projects
this
that are
topic of
well connected in terms
digitalization,
of sustainability.
which are two
Well, that
elements
is the
that
end of my
connect us all
presentation,
with
and I
sustainability.
give the floor
That
to
was
my
my
colleague
presentation, and
Ariel
now
from
I
the
will leave you with
CMS,
Ariel
and
from the
he will
Center
start his
of
presentation
Sustainable Mobility,
of
and he's going
data and
to
evidence for the
present
measurement of key indicators in
about
mobility.
PIP
Please, Ariel, thank you for your time.
in mobility. Thank you, Felipe. I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. I would like to thank you for this opportunity. And I would like to begin by talking about digitalization. When we think about that, we think about all the changes that we have seen in the last time, especially with AI. And for us who are trying to decarbonize transportation, are asking how this could help us with this aim. My name is Ariel Núñez. I am head of data platform and in the Center of Sustainable Mobility, and I'm going to talk you about my experience. Well, when we are talking about digitalization, we think about some object which is associated with it. Online payments, cell phone, computers, and all these processes, all these technologies allow us to transform this particular event into some information which is digital. So this is analog information that is taken into the digital world. This is called digitalization. And although this is a really important process, it's not the only thing that we need to have in mind when we are talking about digitalization. If we think in terms of impact, digitalization is a lower level in terms of the transformation that the digitalization makes. So this is a metaphor and a comparison. To put it simply, it would be like typing something in the computer without doing anything to that. The next step would be use that information. So in the next step, we would need to use a structure, a framework. So it allows us to create processes, flows, better protocols, better practices, better frameworks, everything that's needed to capture the information in an automatic way, ideally to keep it safe as well. Then we need to clean the information that will be used. And that is something like refining gold. So we take the gold from the stones, then we use it, we prepare it to make it more valuable. Then that's when we start the second step in digitalization. In the real world, this would be similar to selling and buying a vehicle. Then you will need to compile the information of the user, and then you will need to take that information and add some value to it. Instead of just seeing transactions, then we are seeing more of it. So me adding more information allows me to analyze it, to project it to the future, to understand grouping tendencies, to adjust myself. And that is the process that we can compare to the refining of gold. The last process, talking about the impact, comes from the digitalization. That is, after we created all the infrastructure and we can keep that information, this allows us to connect with the community and to create a direct impact. This is because the data already has a value, a good enough value that allows the community to generate analysis, sharing projects, for example. This has an impact that is, for example, related to the regulations in the country. As CMS, and in my experience working in this center, one of the most difficult things that we have encountered has been the access to the information of transportation from different organisms, especially those that are associated with fiscalization, the entry of vehicles to the market, And that lack of data has stopped us from developing other advances that could be very beneficial for us when we are talking about new regulations or improving the quality of life of citizens. In this process, we have been also being able to identify exceptionalities inside the regions. In the case of Chile, the laboratory TCV is an example. But we can see that there are organizations that have the correct infrastructure, but they are kind of isolated. So we need to create networks to be able to share that information. Having this network, we will be able to enter data that, for example, some others couldn't reach without help. This will allow us to avoid double effort and will also help us save some money. An example of what I wanted to tell you about the levels of impact in the case of energetic efficiency laws. This law was implemented in 2024, and this was possible thanks to the data of the laboratory TCV, which is a laboratory for heavy and light vehicles that is located in Santiago. This takes all the information from the vehicles that enters to the city, then standardize this data, uploads it, and it's available for different organisms. They are in charge of sharing this information, tying this information, which is this tag that you can see in the picture. Oh, and also you can see a photo of the laboratory. They are measuring some. What is important about this? And that TCV exists and is sharing this information, cleaning it, enriching it, and giving it to the community. The good thing is that we can measure and not only implement a new law, but also measure the impact of this law. In this case, the example is the law of energetic efficiency that as soon as it started being implemented, it changed all the models that were entering the country. And the majority of the emissions, zero emissions or hybrids or electrics, help to reduce in great value the amount of emission of CO2 that we could have in this region. This line that you can see in red shows what could have happened if we wouldn't have accepted hybrid vehicles. It's comparing hybrids with external charge and without it, and pure electrics. And the green line is thanks to all the technologies that we have present in the country. So the law had a really important impact in the services, the, the vehicles used for services of transportation. So what have we learned from this as experience? Is that when we have this infrastructure to extract information, to clean it, to enrich it, and also to share it, then we can assess that development and understand that law, for example. In the case of vehicles, light vehicles, in Chile, we have been able to compare hybrid technologies, mic hybrid, and other technologies to see which one has the best performance under the standards that we have established. Another example of this is that we have an impact in international relevance. I don't know if you remember the case of Volkswagen, which is something that accelerated the rules in Europe. It passed from Euro CEA to Euro C6. So it added some portable system of measurements for gases called pens. So a group of students compared the data with some other standardized data from United States. So they compare the results from both laboratories, and they found some incongruencies that created some trend, which precisely Volkswagen was starting. It was a software inside of the vehicles that was used to simulate. When they were testing in a lab, everything looked fine, but in standards, under standards measurements. On the other hand, when they were on the street, the behavior was different and the system was being fooled, and that had a great impact. Finally, another thing that we were able to notice is the importance of this presentation of data and access to the data, is that every success of a regulation or a law is connected to the availability of the information. If not, you will start discussions with nothing to support them, nothing really important to clarify the real impact of the decision. And that can only be seen through measurements and data and, comparing. This is the most effective and efficient way of being able to see if our regulation is working as it was expected to. Another thing that we notice is that only through a robust infrastructure that allows us to keep the information, clean it, and share it, we have been able to create great impact and to get the discussion to higher levels, heading to what is our aim, which is decarbonization. In Chile, we already have a strategy and a national level of digitalization, and what it looks for is to give more power to data. So we have TCV with its own infrastructure, its own process to enrich data and to share it with the community, but it's isolated. TCV shares information, and then at the end, that is not useful. So we need, on a national level, more organisms doing the same. And that's why we need a law. And that's really hard because when we are standardizing things, we notice that the information is better. We can make better analysis, and this will reflect in the community. And about decarbonization, we can say that it depends on that and the topics.
So also to continue with the idea of Accelerating decarbonization via CMS, what we see, and mostly in my position as leader of the area, is a necessity of creating these networks to share this information. And it's really important that in a local way, we get to create the necessary infrastructure to be able to store data and to be able to share it as well. And that improvement that may happen on a regional level could allow us, for instance, to do what I mentioned before, that the 3CV as a lab has enough light and heavy information on vehicles. We may be able to share information to other countries that don't have labs, but that do have the homologation process, like any other country has to have that process of what vehicles can enter the national market and what vehicles don't. And with this type of information, they can create a much better process, much more demanding process that allows them to have a strategy on the long term that is measurable. And this can only be done sharing data and sharing that so that every country can make decisions according to their particular cases. This eventually might reduce the duplicity of efforts and may improve the research on development of the region. Most of all, the most important thing is that decisions that may be taken, as I mentioned, will be based on evidence and measurable information. Now, to finish, I want to give you this message so that for digitalization is not just something close to an improvement or a delic's improvement. It's a necessity, which is going to allow us to advance towards a cleaner development, safer development with decision and higher participation from the community. And this will not only, and also the access to data would not only push decarbonization, but it would also improve the quality of life in so many ways. And we would have a much more informed and active community. So, from the CMS, trying to support and being consequent with this idea that the digitalization is looking for a more informed citizenship, a more informed community. Sorry, we have developed several tools, and one of those tools is this page that informs about the energy efficiency law, and it aims to show the goals. Who is let me show you what it's about. Here you can see the context of what this law is. I don't know if you can see it. I hope you are. Yeah, no, we can see. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So in the first part here, there's a little bit of context. Here's the graph. We have been updating it lately, so it looks a little different. Yesterday, it was totally outdated. And in the next part, you can see the different importers, if they are complying with the law or not, the brands. And you can play around a little bit, analyze what's going on at least on a Chilean level, what's going on with light vehicles and what's the impact of this law. So, what I want to highlight is that all of this would not have been possible if there wasn't an infrastructure that allows to store data, compile it, clean it, and finally provide it to the community. So that's my final idea. I want to thank every one of you for your patience, and I will be here for any questions that you may have. Thank you, Ariel, for your presentation. and for highlighting the importance of these processes of monitoring, of analysis, and the communication of data of energetic efficiency. We will continue to our next speaker. Uh, Please welcome Alvaro Maturana, who is a coordinator of charging infrastructure from the SE agency. We are going to learn learn lessons of the first monitoring in electric taxi in operation in Chile. Alvaro, please start your presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you. I'm starting to share my screen right now. Perfect. Can you tell me if you can see it? Yes, yes, we can. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Luis, again, and to the CMS as well for this opportunity. My name is Alvaro Maturana, coordinator of charging infrastructure in the area of sustainable mobility and green hydrogen in Chile, which is the Energetic Sustainability Agency. And I want to share with you the main learned lessons of the first e-taxi monitoring performed in Chile for the first version of the program, My Electric Taxi. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce what the institution is from where this project was born. We are the ES agency here in Chile. We are a nonprofit organization from the Ministry of Energy. Our labor is to design and implement and promote initiatives that impulse fair energetic transition, sustainable and centered in people. I would also like to take my time to say thank you to every single person who made this project happen, starting by the agency, the company Movia, that was in charge of the physical monitoring of the vehicles, the Institute of Complex System of Engineering for the analysis and the translation of data, and also, of course, to the CMS, the Sustainable Mobility Center, for this opportunity to be able to show our work. So to start with what the program My Electric Cab is. In Chile, taxis or cabs are transport vehicles that carry people from one point to another without a predefined time, different from buses or other transport. It's very standard on an international level. And this program, My Electric Taxi, seeks to accelerate the transition to electromobility in this segment. They offer two main benefits. One is the co-financing of the purchase of an electric vehicle for these people. And second, the free installation of a home charger. With time, these supports have been strengthened, starting with 8 million of Chilean pesos, which is around $9,000 or 8,000 euros. That's a reference from the year 2022 and 2023 when the program started. But with time, the program been evolving. This co-financing has reached 16 million Chilean pesos in this present version. That is close to $16,700 and 15,000 euros. With the reference of this year, we have current versions working. Clearly, beyond what is finance and technical stuff, there's a benefit that is never mentioned or not wide known, but it's fundamental. That is accompanying people. That means supporting people, supporting the people of the program, providing them with technical assistance, solving doubts and questions. This has been key so these people are safe to go forward with this technological switch. We are talking about people that have been working with these vehicles for decades and they make the choice of changing into electromobility. That is a very important decision. Now, in the agency, through this area, we are working to implement programs that may boost transition, as I was saying. In this framework, we developed the study of learned lessons of the program, which purpose was to analyze and systematize this technical data with the experiences of the people who participated, not only in the technical area, but also trying to guide the development of future policies, public policies, or other programs of electromobility. Now, To provide context, the monitoring of the vehicles was done through a structured process. There was a public participation, there was a company provider of the monitoring, there were systems installed in 50 electric vehicles, BYB models, registering data for over 12 months, energy consumption, distances, over 14,000 charging sessions, schedules, types of infrastructure use, and several other data. To this, we add the qualitative research with surveys and interviews to the beneficiaries with their learnings. And this technical analysis, as I mentioned, was in charge of the Institute of Complex System of Engineering. The study was performed with 49 taxis of the 50 because one of them was left out of circulation. Now, one of the main results of these 49 vehicles, it was that they register 1 million kilometers consuming over 400,000 kilowatts by hour of energy. And this mostly came from the electric network, and 26% came from the regenerative energy, which is not a small amount of energy, which was not paid by the beneficiaries. From this total charge, 76% was done at home in public infrastructure, which is in second place. Now, these results are translated into 136,000 liters of gas that were not consumed, which is a very high amount to save. There were also 227 tons of CO2 emissions that were avoided, plus 148 million Chilean pesos in savings, around $170,000 or 160,000 euros, only savings in terms of gas. Now, the individual analysis shows a huge diversity. Not all vehicles maintain or performed the same journeys. Some some went over 100,000 kilometers per year. So the savings in gas a year is translated into 3 million Chilean pesos, which also means 3,000 euros or $3,470. And in 1 year, the one person that saved the most reached almost 8,700,000 Chilean pesos, which means almost $9,850 or 9,370 euros. Now, what's the behavior of these taxi drivers and their charging processes? So they use, as we mentioned, the infrastructure was at home. It's key to provide them with these chargers because it was what they use the most. During the day, they don't have the time to charge the cars. And during the night, while the vehicles are at home, they use these spaces to charge them, considering that the fare at home is much lower than the fare in the public infrastructure. Now we can see a very little rise in the use of public infrastructure during the day, at noon mostly. And that was because, thanks to their behavior themselves, taxi drivers, they work a lot of hours during the day and they needed to charge in the middle of the day, just like in the hours of less traffic of people, of clients.
So, where did they charge? Using the time that they have on the public infrastructure. We noticed that this is something super interesting, which is influenced by the place where the chargers are. So they need to go to where they had these chargers. Here we can see some regions where people live and other points where we can see the infrastructures to charge the vehicles. And we can see that many of them are far away from where the drivers live. Now, all these beneficiaries, these 49 taxis, we could notice that not all of them work the same way. They have different patterns, and we were able to group them in three. One that is intensive, they work from Monday to Sunday. Not all of them, but they normally work 10 hours a day. They are the people who save the most. And so they would travel for more kilometers and work more. And they also make more money. There's also the yellow group, which work from Monday to Friday and rest during the weekend. They work more or less the same hours a day in comparison to the intensive group, but they didn't work on weekends. This specifically because they say they were making, they noticed that they don't need, they could make the same amount of money working less time in comparison to what a gas or a gasoline vehicle would make them. So many of these drivers were 60 years old. They were using the same time, saving some hours that they could share with their families. As a final conclusion, we can say that aren't there isn't a one and only profile for taxi driver. There many of them work for longer hours, and some others got bigger get bigger saves. Um, some others use the vehicle as a complementary asset, asset, asset for their financial situation. And also, we also noticed that they had significant savings. According to this, creating this e-mobility in the transportation service is certainly possible. And we can use that to make decisions in the future to help to create more programs. And also, we need to help people with their experiences. They are the ones that help us. As a central idea, I would say that we need to listen to the experiences of this person, because normally we are talking about these projects from the outside. We need to know the real experience, the user experience of the person that use these vehicles every day. And for public and private transportation. And this experience was gratifying. It was amazing. It's important. You can visit our website in www.ecomovilidad.cl. There you can see everything that we have been doing, our progresses, and the challenges that we are facing right now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alvaro, for your presentation. That's a really solid example of the monitoring of data in operations that allowed us to make conclusions over the transformation in technological transformation that we have been carrying out in electrical taxis in Santiago and other regions. I would like to introduce Diego. Uh, also remind you that at the end, we'll have a colleague of us that will help us with the Q&A section. After saying that, I will leave you with Diego, who is the manager of finances and economic analysis of the Directorate of Public Transportation of the Metropolitan Region, and he's going to present us the case of DTPM in digitalization and in electronic payment that is being integrated in the public transportation system. Good morning. Thank you so much. Both previous presentations that I saw were really interesting, and now I will talk to you about the integration of the electronic payment in trips, and in the mobility of persons. First, to start, I believe it is good to wait a little. I work in the public transportation system of Santiago, and as so, I think it is important to share what the transportation system is, how it is structured, where we mainly integrated three models of transportation. When we speak about the network of mobility, we are talking about a system with three modalities. We have metro. It has 149 kilometers in length. We also have buses. Our buses have a network of more than 3,000 kilometers among 36 communes in Santiago. Santiago is divided in communes similar to districts, and this is a network of more than 3,000 kilometers, as I said. So we see a big quantity of person that can use this system every day. And we're talking about 7.4 million citizens per day. We can see more than 5 million validations or transactions per day. Normally, they are divided half and half between metro and buses, and 1% in private bus that we have, which is different. That only goes from Estación Central to San Bernardo. So it has a specific route. Another topic that we are being in mind in our system nowadays is our goals. We have goals of electrification of the systems where we are expecting through this process to reinforce the system, electrically speaking. We in 2017 we got the first electrical buses, and now we are closing the year with 4,400. So this will represent 68% of all our buses by the end of the year. So this makes Santiago pointer in this area. About electric buses, we can talk in another time. We have all this information up published in our website, and we can see in detail there how we have been advancing in this project. But today, I would like to tell you about how has been our development, our evolution in the public transportation system of Santiago, and also how's it going. In the past, we used to got in the bus, pay the ticket, the driver gave you the change, and that was a process that repeated every time you got into one of the buses. And it repeated every time you got to a new one. Until in 2007, we created this subsidy or regulation that was called Plan Santiago. And together with its transformation, we created the tip card. What happened? Well, we passed from cash payment to card payment, so we stopped using cash and we started charging some cards that were used to pay the public transportation. Together with that, we created the integrated trips, which in principle is you pay one trip and not every time you got into a new bus. And if you took three, it was only one trip. So obviously this change helped, and we also established some changes thanks to digitalization, new things that were involved in the system, integrated to it. Then we changed the name in 2020, and we adopted the new one, which is Red Movilidad. When we talk about the public transportation of Santiago, we say Red Movilidad. And now you can pay with your cell phone with QR codes. We are working in a system to be able to pay through credit cards. By the second semester of the year, we are hoping to have this integrated already. So this is an integrated system, as we said, in transportation with three modalities that allows the payment through digital cards. So this helps you travel in an integrated way. What does this mean? When I pay only one ticket, I can go to the metro, then take a bus, and then take another transportation system. Just paying once. And what is important about this? You can go from one point of the city to another, only paying once. And that's the spirit that we have behind the integration. In the same spirit, we're also solidifying some subsidies that will help us to integrate the tariff system, the technology. And this subsidy helps us to have this tariff and also have a strong mobility in the city. It is important to us to being able to travel from one point to another, paying just once. And also, thanks to that, our ticketing system has been evolving, and today it's not only a payment system, but it's also a group of tools that are directly related to digitalization. The payment method helps us to enter the system, and we can pay with a card or with a cell phone. Sometimes we use, we can enter the system through the cell phone. And in order to use these methods, we need some validation systems. And we use the system ABT normally, which is a system that will not take your money just at the moment. The idea is that you go to the validator, you put your card, and it allows you to go through the system. And also we need some other commercialization network. Why? Because we need the cards to have money beforehand. So in order to do that, we need a charging system that is accessible in all the cities. It's not useful that I can travel from one point to another if I cannot charge my car when I want. So the idea is to avoid people getting in the bus without having charge in the car. And also, as the system grows, remember we have 5 million transactions a day.
And of course, that may create doubt. Sometimes people need help, and sometimes someone can have an issue, and we need to provide customer service and also a post sale service according to the system that we already have. And lastly, we have the back office system. And here's the heart of digitalization because what does back office do? It put prices on travels and journeys. You enter the system through your cell phone, and since you pay it at the end of the day, the system needs to know how much to charge. So in the same back office, you process the data to know how people moved, to see how was mobility around town. For instance, the most basic example, on a rainy day, mobility changes radically mm, in comparison to a day of sun like today. It's very different. So this whole digitalization process helps us to program ourselves better, to see how we react to different events that may occur in the city. So, for instance, a sports event, a football match, a concert in the national stadium, that also happens. So, nowadays we accumulate so much data that allows us to anticipate ourselves and to program better according to the events that may or may not happen. So, in this payment system, it's not just a payment system, it's a system that provides a lot of information and that also allows to create policies and it allows to create improvements in mobility starting from empirical information and information that we know well today. And here I go in digital payment per se, the payments with phone. And phone payment starts in 2022 in January. And as you can see in the graph, it has growth every single year. It hasn't stopped. We started, we couldn't even reach 200,000 validations a day, but nowadays we are practically in 700,000 validations per day, almost there, almost a million validations. So we have two QR payment methods. It's the payment of the system of the Beep application and also the app of a bank, which is the biggest bank in Chile with the most clients in Chile, which is Bank Estado. And through the app, they provide the QR service. So you can see in the yellow line, that's the bank payment. The red line is the payment with the app of the public transport system. And between those two, we are reaching 1 million validations a day. As I said, we have over 5 million validations. Now we have a million. And as you can see in this slide, 29% of validations today are digital. And you can say, okay, 5 million versus 1 million, not matching. Well, the students have their own benefits. The elderly have their own benefits. So 29% of validation today is digital. So as you can see today, it's a very important growth. 3 years, we have created such a huge participation and the impact has been strong. And as well, for us to be able to boost digital payment, we created a benefit called QR. And we launched it in 2023 in September. And we said every single person that pays with QR codes with their phones, we're going to limit their month expenses. And today, every single person that travels every day and accumulates the expenditure for a month, if they reach almost $40, the system stops charging money. All the travels that he pays for after that are free. That's a very different logic. That's a logic of you spend, and when you reach that limit, I don't charge you anymore. Today, we have benefited over 100,000 people with that benefit since we started it until today. And we are increasing it. It grows. Just like digital payment increases, also the number of benefits increase as well. Now, also, this is starting from the digitalization. To make it better, to boost it, we created this initiative and it has been consolidated with time. And to close this presentation, let's talk about the challenges of integration. Nowadays, it's good to look at the ticketing system and the payment system as a system that is not only to pay. I mean, of course, you have access to the network, but also We use it to plan, to be able to plan operation, plan travels, plan where to reach, where to cover, where we are lacking in a way. But also, it's a tool today that we use and we look at it with an eye of a different perspective. We have integrated models, but of course, we would love to use bikes, to add taxi, to add several different ways of transport and integrate them to our payment system. So today, since technology moves so fast, we are able to own it in the payment system and to grow in these five pillars. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Nowadays, technology grows every single day and grows stronger. So, for the same reason, the payment system here in Santiago, we look at it as a necessity to incorporate technology and to take this payment system to the frontier of technology. And using the five different pillars that I show you here in the payment system is the line that corresponds with this presentation. But AI, how does it help? It could help us on recognizing how to identify several behaviors that are not adequate with our fares, let's say fraud. And this is done through several different aspects of the Internet of Things. We can find a control of benefits through smart readers and face recognition. We could check when a student card is being misused, when an adult, for example, is using a student card. Through different sensors and cameras, we may be able to identify misuse. Also, big data. It creates 5 million validations a day. That means we have a lot of information, not only as how the person moves or if the person is a student, maybe if they are elderly. We are in talks today with the civil registry office so they can provide us information on the demographics to know about the jobs of people that use the cards, for instance, to keep enriching the information that we have to be able to provide a much better service. And that's what we aim to do, using these different tools to be able to provide a better service, more focus through technology. And so on and so forth. Virtual reality, how can we incorporate it to the system of payment? And as I mentioned, biometry, which we are going to see in the next slide. Today, we have a pilot to launch in some buses of the system where the validators have a camera that captures your facial biometry. And this pilot is capturing faces, recognizing them. And the idea is to make this project escalate in several lines. That we could create payment with biometry. We could also create fiscalization when it comes to misuse of cards. Also, fiscalization of benefits that may be provided to people. And in tools of planning, for example, how many women are using the bus, how people that have babies use the bus, and how we can provide better accessibility for them to the system. And all of this happening thanks to technological tools. So nowadays, the public transport in Santiago is a system that is consolidating, incorporating technologies that not only go in the line of payment, but it's also in the way of how we strengthen this payment system so we get to access better information that provides better service for people and creates more and better mobility in the city. And that would be it. I think that this opens the space for so many questions. I think we are improving so much in these aspects in the system. So that would be it. Please ask your questions if you have any. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you, Diego, for your presentation, how digitalization has allowed us to improve the operation and also the quality of the service. And having said that, here we open the space for our colleague, Janina Nostroza from the CMS, who will moderate the Q&A session. Please welcome. Thank you, Luis Felipe, and thank you, Diego, for your presentation. So yes, we could have many questions. We are a little bit limited in time. So let me tell you how we will continue with this Q&A session. We have been answering a few of the questions that have been written in the chat, but the idea is to open your mics so we can create a space for at least 3 questions from the audience. You may raise your little hands here. We're going to open your mic as soon as you raise your hand. So it's not possible to open your camera, but please do ask. We will open your mic in the language that you prefer. Let me remind you that we do have simultaneous interpretation in English and Portuguese. So I know that there's several questions in the chat as well. So I'm gonna have to read one here from Eduardo Zaragoza while the audience keeps asking live. He asks for Diego about the credit card payment, specifically credit cards or bank debit cards. Yeah, is it possible to use any of these cards? And also, I'm going to add another question from Aldo Vega, who asks, how does it work when you already exceeds your $40 a month and you start using free trips? Are those travels financed by the state? Well, with the first question, yes. The project incorporates all cards, debit cards, credit cards, these other types of cards that are widely used. It incorporates all types of cards. And why? Because basically what we want to do is to raise the barriers to enter the system, to be part of this system. Chile is a very technological country. We have the belief that since we have this participation of people in banks, all the types of cards are widely used. So as long as they're being used in the public transport system, we create more participation with banks as long as we create more participation in buses with the cards from the banks. And that is a very good and positive feedback. If a person is using your cards in the public transport system, that's easier to use. So I'm going to start using these bank cards to buy, to pay other services. So it's good feedback. And that's a very important circle. And in regards to the monthly expenditure, we have subsidies, and the 35% is by the first of users covered. And all system of public transport that are regulated, comparable to Santiago, with a very extensive subway and metro network with several buses as well, all the system have subsidies. Nowadays, we might think that it's hard to have a system like this without subsidy. Why? Because the state invests in mobility, because it's a daily life thing. And of course, when you reach that monthly limit, your journeys are not paid anymore. And the gap of investment that is not paid by you is covered by the subsidy of the government. But also, there's also other derivations of the project itself, which is also, as long as we foment digital payment, we create savings in our charging network, because one digital charge, it's so much less expensive than a physical charge. So the digital payments create a balance. It creates savings in that sense. It's it's a good balance where not everything is paid with subsidy, but also with savings.
Perfect. having that incepted. It's a really thing you said. I see we have a raised hand. I will open the microphone. Rita, so you can hear her. Hi. Well, in the same topic, talking about subsidies, have you calculated the size of the percentage of the subsidies? And do you have the total in the system, or do you have it sectioned by modalities or by types or technological components? Well, as I was saying, our system is an integrated system. So we have a public transportation system with the buses and the metro integrated. As part of this system, they receive payments from us, but what goes in the system are just subsidies and tariffs. 60% is subsidies and 30% is tariff. Now, according to the cost of the system, how do I divide these incomes in the system? It depends. There are many things that we have to have in mind and be paying in order for the system to work. We have the ticketing system, all the charging infrastructure. So we use at least 5% of the subsidy and the complementary services of the system. Okay, we have another question. Maybe if you, uh, once you have your microphone activated, please tell us where are you connected from, where are you from, and what's your name? And also, I would like to remind you that you can make questions to any of the three centers. Oh, Rita, I am from Mexico. Well, thank you, Rita. Now you can deactivate your audio. Oh, Aldo, you can activate your audio. Hi. Yes. Hi, I'm from Argentina. I would like to ask about facial recognition. Does it make individual recognitions or by genre? Is there any law that forbids the individual recognition of people in terms of privacy protection? Well, that's a good question. We are actually running a pilot project where only the registered person can be recognized. And it's a person recognition, not about characteristics, but the person is him or herself. But that's with a registry process being made previously, which is important. Also, we want the person to be conscious and at, when they are accepting this recognition, because we don't want to get into the privacy of anyone. Well, thank you, Diego. That's a really interesting pilot, and we hope we can know a little bit more of it when you have the result. Oscar, now activate your. Hi. Yes. My question is for Alvaro Maturana about the project of the taxes. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. It was super interesting. I loved your presentation. And I have two questions. One is, are you thinking about extending the project to other regions, especially in rural zones outside of the metropolitan region, where the public transportation systems are few? Also, there are some diagnoses that we have that shows that the tariffs are really high in these regions, in zones, and also it shows a lack of services. Basically, the experience that we have see maybe we can increase the services, maintaining the tariff, or maybe decreasing them. That's my question. Well, that's a really good question. I showed you the first monitoring of our first version, but now we're working in a second one, which is involving the metropolitan region, uh, the fifth region, and also some other regions from the south of the country. We so mainly the metropolitan region, but this is also an opportunity to start a third version of the project. We are thinking about the regions of Antofagasta, Atacama, O'Higgins, and Biobío, also with a little bit more of metropolitan region. First version was 50 vehicles from the metropolitan region. The second was 90 to 93 vehicles divided between the metropolitan region and the others that I mentioned. And you can also read that publication on our website. There's a map explaining everything. And the new version, the third one, hoping to have 600 vehicles. We are currently in 200, 140 vehicles already given to the drivers. So we are really happy about it, being a good experience. And as you asked about the rural sectors, we have um, connected to people that live in these kind of places, rural, I just said, and they want to enter the programs for Mi Taxi Eléctrico. Normally, they have urban trips. Not only urban trips, they have to go from one place to another, 30 to 40 kilometers, in total 50 to 70. So we can see that there are people that is wanting to be part of this project. This will allow us to keep developing more stages for this project, and we are little by little reaching every region in the country. That's our goal, and we are really hopeful that this will progress. Also, you mentioned the tariff. Sadly, we cannot do anything about that, or as Ministry of Energy, uh, because that is regulated by another entity, which is the Transportation Ministry. Many of the drivers have mentioned, and the users as well, that maybe an electrical vehicle could have a lower tariff. The user said they could pay less. The driver said they could cost more because they are offering a green service. And those are two different perspectives, but sadly that is connected to some other entities. So the tariff is plain. What we can say about this is that the colors of the services are different. Normally taxis are black with yellow. And what we did with this electrical vehicle, we paint them black and green so people can recognize them. At the beginning, they were seen as strange, but today people recognize them and they even wait for them. So they have really interesting looking vehicles. Some others are white and green. People can differentiate them uh, and also prefer them. So that is something that we can extend to other regions. Thank you, Alvaro. Thinking about the time that we have left, uh, I will allow Jimena to make a little presentation about how are we moving forward in this cooperation related to the digitalization of the transportation region. I invite you to keep doing making questions our Q&A section, and we will answer them after Thank you so much for being here today in this section. Hi, thank you, Janina. I will talk about what Janina was mentioning, the access questionnaire. As they mentioned, access is focused in the digitalization of the transportation system, and also it's focused in the assessment of necessities for capacitation. And in order to do that, we created this survey. It is super important because it allows us to recognize gaps in knowledge and priorities, and also recognize the local experts and regional experts. Also, it allows us to guide the platform of learning and access. This survey has 4 sections. First, we ask for the participant information, but it's anonymous, so we are not asking for your name. Then we have a self-evaluation of knowledge, sustainability, mobility, and digitalization. Then we have the third section of priorities and challenges in our city and country, and the fourth section of preferences about the modalities of participation, which is in person, online, or we have the survey, and we will share the link through the chat. It's available in 3 languages. You can change it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can choose the language that is the best for you. And we ask you, please, to fill this survey until the September 26th. It is really fast, 10, 12 minutes, enough to finish it. It will be really helpful so we can finish this with relevant information. And so we ask you to share this with your workmates, with your local government connections, universities, nonprofit organizations, foundations. This is the QR that allows you to visit the survey. And also we will share it in the chat, as I said, together with the presentation that you just saw, so you can have access to the QR. That would be it. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll share the link, and thank you again. I don't know if you have some closing words to say. Yes, thank you, Jimena. Thank you for presenting the survey. Basically, this survey will help us to design for the next year the list of capacitation and workshops related to this topic. So interesting as transportation. And thinking about the time, we can only say thank you to everybody, to the institutions that made this possible. Thank you for allowing us to create this webinar. We would like to thank Amos LA as part of the community, and Venuva, the program access, the platform for the regional platform for Latin America, to all our presenters, Ariel, Alvaro, Diego, and also thanks to our translators, to the company Gratus that help us to go through this presentation in 3 languages. And also I would like to thank all the audience. We will share the presentation with you and the link of the survey that we were presenting previously. Also the video of the webinar that we just saw. Saying that, I would like to close. Thank you all. I'll see you in the next one.